What's up, beautiful people? This is Philip from Creative Habits Podcast. I just want to thank this artist and this educator and this author for joining us today, Mr. Albert Phillips Jr. Albert was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, received primary education in Baltimore City Public School System. He earned an Associate's of Arts in General Studies from Baltimore Community College, a Bachelor's of Science in Print Journalism from Morgan State University, and a Master's of Science in Education from Johns Hopkins University. A very established brother. He is the CEO and founder of Free Black Mind Educational Group, a social enterprise startup that provides digital and print resources designed to empower and educate Black youth. His first self-published book, Y'all Hiring, The Black Teen Guide to Navigating Employment, was released in October 2020. And so much more accolades. How you doing today, my brother?
I'm blessed, King. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation to be here with you today.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit more about yourself and what was it like growing up in Baltimore?
Yeah, so I mean, Baltimore City is the stomping ground. It taught me a lot both in and out of the classroom. I feel like I learned even more, outside of some of those institutions that you mentioned. Just living here, just being here, connecting with people, talking with my elders, building with different brothers and sisters in the community. And so just being here and being a part of the city has truly changed me and empowered me to continue to be a change agent. There's a lot of pain and strife in the city. And so I feel like I internalize that in a lot of ways, but I also try to provide hope to a lot of people, particularly young people, because I feel like, our city has not invested in them enough, and our country and our world and has not invested in them enough. And so I want to be able to, teach lessons, provide inspiration, provide resources, and really just invest in my community, because I'm only here for a finite amount of time, in the physical at least. And so I want to be able to take advantage of what I can do and to put in others what others have put in me. So that's something that I've made, pretty much my life mission beyond just what I'm getting paid to do. It's a lot of stuff that's not on paper that I do and I support with that I'm happy to do because it just empowers me. So just a man of the people, to be honest with you, and something that I strive to continue to get better at each day.
I could dig that. Me being from DC, there's a lot of like similarities since we're like close proximity. And what I love about Baltimore is there's so much beauty in the city. You know, Baltimore is full of prideful, Black and brown people. Um, the art is amazing in the art district, as well as, there's a lot of educated people. My favorite place is everyone's place, the bookstore.
Yeah.
Like every time I go to Baltimore, I gotta stop there and grab a few books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even though there is a lot of pain in the city, there's a lot of beauty in the city as well.
Absolutely. And shout out to everyone's place. Shout out to Brother Nati, the owner, who's been there since the beginning of time. I feel like my book, Y'all Hiring, is actually available there. He was one of the local bookstores that was willing to give me a chance and give me an opportunity. And he has just, that institution has been a beacon of light in our community for a number of years. The oldest Black bookstore that's still in the city.
Right.
It's really just like a mecca in the community. So I appreciate you for shouting them out.
Yeah, man. Come to think about it, that's like we used to have a lot down here in the city. I think we still do got one by Howard, but everyone's place is like one of the last Black bookstores, in this area.
For sure. It's definitely a mecca for real in the city. Anybody who come in And I love that it's like it's still adjacent to the hood. So you gotta go, you
Hmm.
gotta come where we at. You know what I'm saying? You can't just go to Barnes and Nobles and these nice and beautiful parts of the city, quote unquote. But we want to bring you to where the real people are. And so I love everyone's space for being there.
How important, well, let me bring it back. When I was younger, going into the school system, I very rarely seen black and brown people, especially black men, as educators in the school system. The first time I actually seen a black educator was in high school. Everything else was like white male or mainly white female dominated. How important is being a black educator in Baltimore or just in general?
It's extremely important. Only 2% of public school educators are black men, and so there's a huge disparity. There's a huge need, and I think that number is so low due to a variety of reasons. One, I think our perspectives are not upheld enough, and not respected enough,
Mm,
and the culture of the school buildings that a lot of us are in are not supportive enough of how we need to teach and how we show up and do the work and
mm,
how we want to put in our ideas, our dreams, our desires into the curriculum, into other facets of education. So I think that's a piece of it. I think the pay in education it can also be a struggle and a hindrance for folks as well. And I think just a lack of community in a lot of ways. I think
mm,
sometimes when you're a black man, particularly in a school, you feel sort of outcasted. You feel like you're on your own because you don't have folks around in a building who you can talk to about your struggles and things that just are culturally aligned to who you are. It's difficult to have some of those conversations, and so it's a lot that goes into that. But black men in education have been a significant force in my life, particularly Mr. Sai, my sixth grade social studies teacher. I still talk to him, off and on now, and he was my educator about 20 years ago now, right? But
mm,
he had such a strong impact that we remain connected. And then Mr. what we called him Baba Girls in 10th, I think he was my 10th grade US history teacher at Dunbar. I still connect with him every now and again, and we have all types of conversations. He told me he still got an essay that I got to check out when I was in his class, and I wrote about uh, the conflicts between W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington.
mm.
I'm just so curious, like how did I write that back then? What my thoughts were. So eventually, I gotta connect with him to be able to check that out. But not even just men, women have been, particularly Black women have been such strong forces as well. Um, Miss Holloway now because she got married. She was my ninth grade English teacher, and she, well, I'm not gonna say she failed me. I failed myself my first semester in her class because I just wasn't taking it seriously. But she continued to help coach me to get better as a writer and as a reader and many other things. And then post secondary, I had brilliant professors in Morgan State and BCCC. So educators have played a strong role in my life. My dad was an educator as well. He taught at Morgan State. He taught at BCCC. He taught at Sojourner Douglas College before they closed down. So education has been a huge part of the family, and it's something that we hold in high regard, and we know that we as Black people are extremely educated. We invented things, we created
Mm.
things, we're innovators, and so we embrace that mindset when we think about education. It's not just like words on a page or numbers, but these are tools that we can use to help us out in our daily lives. So education is super important, man.
I absolutely agree. There's a rich history in your city, right? Um, I think the first black lawyer, actual black lawyer in the 1800s was from Baltimore. I forget what his name was, but is there any misunderstanding or misinterpretations that people like put on a city that does not live in a city?
Um, I mean, I think people think that people who live in the city don't care about the city.
Mm.
They don't value the community. But I just think that's untrue. I think that, you know, there's been a huge amount of disinvestment into citizens of the city
Mm.
and folks who, you know, don't feel a true sense of connection and ownership with things. You know, they show that in different ways. So people will say like, why, you know, why would you litter? Right? Like, why would you, this is a small example, why would you litter? Why would you trash your own community? Different things like that. And I'm like, man, how many of these houses do we own? You know, like, what do we really have stake in?
Mm.
Um, and you know, on top of that, you know, being brutalized by the police, there have been so many things in so many ways that I feel like people have been disinvested into. But there's still a tremendous amount of pride that people have for the city. I remember as a child having to scrub those marble steps in the
Mhm.
city when I was young. Me and my friends used to just get them real dirty, juice stains and all of that. And my pops made me, you know, go out there with the Ajax and a scrub brush to clean it up. And so I think it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of energy in order to change some of the ills in the city. But I think there are different organizations and different people who really care and really do the work. And so I would say that, you know, we love the city, we care about the city, but sometimes it's hard. You know, sometimes it's hard when you hear about a 13-year-old girl getting shot and killed at a rec center,
Mm.
a 59-year-old woman, clergy member getting killed in a church. Those things are hard, but they are also the result of damaged people and people who have, um, you know, obviously they're out of their mind, they're not thinking clearly. And
Mm.
so they need a lot of support. And I think our city needs a whole lot of support. And hopefully folks continue to step up and do the work.
I can agree. I used to work for this school photography company who you mostly did like outside of Baltimore City, you know what I mean, like the counties and whatever. And I had a few schools inside of the city and a few schools in the county, and I can notice the like discrepancy of the inner city schools were old, they weren't kept up, you know what I mean? But the county schools had brand new everything, you know, brand new schools, like glass windows, like like they put millions of dollars in these schools, right? But what I noticed was that the children in the inner city schools had a lot more respect for authority and their teachers rather than the schools that had a whole bunch of money put inside the schools and whatnot.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, when I speak about disinvestment, that's another part of what I mean. You know, our schools are, I mean, there's quite a few schools opening now that were part of the 21st century plan by the educational system to either rehab or build new schools for our students. But to me, a lot of it comes way too late. You know, like
Mhm.
we've been dealing with buildings that been pretty much the same condition since the 60s and the 70s, you know, but we supposed to compete with all these other schools who have all of this technology. I remember being a sixth grade student. Was it six? No. I'm sorry. It was no. It was six. I was transferring to another school, and my family was going around. We were looking at different schools that I could possibly attend, and I ended up going to this private school. I didn't attend. I mean, I shadowed there one day. It's a
Mhm.
private school called the Park School, and it was just crazy how much they had. I mean, I felt like I was in college. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like they had the computers already. They had healthy lunches. Like they
Mhm.
had classrooms that were technologically advanced. They had the open areas where they can get natural sunlight. It just was all of these things that I'm like, man, I didn't even know this existed. You know, sometimes my father told me that when he was young, he didn't know he was living in poverty until he went into a different community and he saw how they was living because he thought that everybody lived like this. Like everybody just kind of struggled and, you know, scraped to survive, but that's not the reality of everybody. And
Mhm.
I think it's unfortunate that our children, you know, have to continue to succumb to these inequities. But like I said, you know, we're gonna keep the fight going and continue to try to change things.
Absolutely. And I had this favorite saying, you can't make diamonds without pressure. You know what I mean? Like every inner city in America has created something great. Like DC, we had Marvin Gaye or Go Go. You know what I mean? Like Black people in these inner cities are the heartbeat of America. Everything that we do and we create, whether it be music, lingo, pretty much everything, America thrives from it. You know what I mean? Like these young folks with TikTok, they got Black folks who create dances on TikTok and everybody copies it. You know what I mean? So I think it does suck, but us as Black people are the most resilient and creative and artistic people in America. That's just my opinion.
I agree with that, 1,000%.
Um, what made you go into education?
So it allowed me to combine two passions. One was youth development, and the other one was writing. And so I switched more into like a youth development focus. Actually, after I graduated from Morgan State, I went there for journalism, and I had offers to write for different publications. I decided to not take those offers to freelance. And then I ended up working for like the YMCA and the Choice Program and a number of different nonprofits working with young people. And even when I was at Morgan, they had a Center for Academic Success and Achievement, which was an opportunity for incoming students whose grades wasn't up to par. They could go through this program and get their grades right, and then they would be able to enter as freshmen. And so all of those experiences working with young people are things that I really enjoy. And then the writing piece came from journalism, but it also came from even in high school. I love writing. I was in AP English class, and even before that, as a middle school student, I would write poems and things. I used to be in a rap group, and so
Mm.
all of these different passions, I was like, I can kind of combine them in a way in a career. And I was in a classroom for a number of years as a teacher, a few years as a teacher, as a dean, as a paraprofessional. So I had, probably around like 4 or 5 years, like working directly in the classroom or in the school building. I still work full time for the school system, but it's not in the classroom. It's a different capacity. But and just understanding, Malcolm X said, education is our passport to the future.
Mm.
So it's extremely important to be knowledgeable, to be up on things, to know how to read, to know. I mean, these are basic things to some of us, but there's so many people who still struggle reading, right? They still struggle with writing, and we know that folks who struggle with these things could be taken advantage of,
Mm.
and I really just see it as a tool that we should certainly have. And they said, what's the other quote? Um, the tongue is mightier than a sword, so
Mm.
being able to articulate yourself and explain and to think critically, all of that is education to me. It's a tool of empowerment. And so all of those things kind of combined made me want to enter that profession.
So storytelling and writing is one of the oldest art forms since the beginning of time, since we've
Right.
been in Africa, right?
Yeah.
Um, what drives you to create a book called Y'all Hiring? Like what I know Baltimore, right? There's a lot of like resilience within people where a lot of people have the hustler mentality out there, whether it's like the squeegee kids, you know what I mean? Like what influenced you to help the youth figure out the career field, how to, get hired by different companies and stuff?
Yeah, so the book is really, I feel like it's me having a conversation with my young brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
It's multifaceted. One part of it is really an underlying theme of it is empowerment. A lot of workforce development materials are, in my opinion, kind of demoralizing. they're boring, they're not culturally relevant, and they're just telling kids, "Hey, get your act together so you can get a job."
Mhm.
The end. And I feel like it's so much more to it than that. And I feel like it's so much more to the conversation that has been under talked about. And so in the book, I attempt to break it down in three different phases: before the job, on the job, and while transitioning to another job. I feel like most of us are in one of these phases if we are working, or even if we're an entrepreneur, a lot of us still have jobs, right? So it's we're in these different phases. But I wanted to make it simple. I wanted to make it short. I wanted to make it to the point. I wanted to make the tips and the information that I was providing actionable.
Mhm.
I didn't want to make it this long, drawn out, boring book that's just like thrown in a corner. And so I was very intentional about creating it and it being my first book, making sure that it was something of quality. Of course, every time I go back and look at it, I'm like, I wish I would have changed that, or maybe I should have added on more there. I think a lot of artists do that. I've heard even
Mhm.
recorded artists be like, man, if I can go back to my first album and tweak this or change that. But, that's a part of the process. And I already have plans for another edition that's probably going to come out in 3 or 4 years down the line.
Mhm.
We'll add in probably 3 or 4 chapters and expand on some other things. But the book, honestly, is a tool and a resource and a framework to help young people understand that employment is more than just about getting a bag, but it's about how do you make the most out of opportunities. How do you advocate for yourself? We deal
Mhm.
with stress. We deal with discrimination in the workplace. How do you use your voice in order to push back and challenge those things? How do you put people on? How do you level up? So jobs sometimes they offer scholarships and different discounts on different things and travel opportunities. How do you as a young employee start to have conversations about taking advantage of these opportunities?
Mhm.
I mean, even if you're working at McDonald's, McDonald's got scholarship. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not encouraging nobody to go and sign up there, but our jobs, man, they beat us up, they tear us down, time and time again. And so now I think it's time for young, workers to be empowered and educated about how do they stand up, how do they deal with these things, how do they overcome them, and how do you really use these things as opportunities to maybe start your own business or maybe
Mhm.
do something else? How do you earn certifications in the workplace? All these different topics. And then finally, another part of it is me telling my own kind of teenage employment journey. So you'll kind of walk with me and see what things that I've dealt with, things that I feel like I did well, things that I'm like, I messed that up. Don't do
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
But, I tell real stories. I tell Baltimore stories throughout the book. And it just was a beautiful experience. The paperback is out now, along with the ebook and the audio book and the workbook will be out before the end of next year.
That's sweet. That's beautiful. Um, the only thing I disliked about my education was they never really taught like real life situation like credit, taxes. You know what I mean? They taught us like how to write letters and stuff like that. But how important is teaching like real life situations to the youth? So they're not just pushed out in the world trying to figure it out themselves.
Listen, man, that's spot on. I think a lot of our education is outdated. I mean, education was established, a lot of it in this country, at least, hundreds of years ago during the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of things during that time was just preparing people to get jobs and go to work, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we still kind of we have these new thoughts with everybody talking about equity and all of these new things that they want to change, but we are still doing things in this old school kind of fashion. And so I think public education needs to catch up to current times and really think about how to advance our students. And that includes what you mentioned, like we need to talk about real things. So even in a book, there's a chapter on managing workplace stress where I'm talking about yoga and aromatherapy and You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
where else do you see that in an employment book? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like that don't exist. And so I tried to infuse topics that were different, that were needed, and that I feel like our young people could resonate with. Even if some of it is like things that they haven't thought of or that they haven't heard about, at least they'll be able to grapple with the information, based upon seeing it and receiving it. And everything may not be applicable to them. Some stuff they might be like, I ain't doing that. I'm not really rocking with that, but maybe some other stuff it is. And so
Mm.
that's how I pitched it.
I appreciate that. Being in the work field myself, um, I think it's important for us, to take time to ourselves, whether it be a vacation or, yoga, aromatherapy. A lot of us are afraid to take time off for ourselves because I think that we are afraid that we might lose our spot or we might get fired when we got other countries who are able to like vacation for 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean? Um, if a lady gets pregnant here, she only has 6 weeks
Right.
before she goes back to work. You know what I mean? Like how how do you think we can I guess relax a little bit and take time for ourselves?
I think you have to be intentional about it. You have to have boundaries. I feel like some jobs will work you damn near to death if you allow them to.
Mm.
And I think it's also important for us to find joy in things outside of work. And I know we always pitch this idea of like the goal in life is just to get a career, you know what I'm saying? Like and work.
Mm.
Like, all right, once a kid graduates from high school, it's like, all right, where you gonna work? What you gonna do? You gonna work college, you gonna get like, but
Mhm.
it's like I think life is deeper than that. And we just can't let our employers control us and our time and what we really value, right? And so I'm always telling people if you got PTO, take that PTO. Don't feel bad about it. I've known people who literally came to work with the flu and other ailments because they want to finish a project or they want to get something done and things like that. I'm like, yo, not only are you potentially getting other people sick,
Mhm.
but you're not even taking care of yourself because you're putting the values of your job above who you are as a person. And so I think just being mindful, being intentional about your well-being and knowing that you are more than just your job. You are valuable to yourself, to your friends, to your family. If you got children, your children need you. Um, and I know it's not always easy to do. I think a lot of our jobs put a lot of pressure on us, but I think just having that intention is at least a starting point to getting things right.
I can dig that. Um, who is the most influential person in your life? Like what, who did you look up to growing up?
My father, that's easy. I
Mm.
mean, just from the jump, seeing his kind of life trajectory, from being in the streets and getting locked up to kind of reshaping himself and his image and going to school and raising me. He's been raising me since I was about 7 years old. Um, and so it's been beautiful to be able to have a direct connection. And we got the same name, you know what I'm saying? He gave me his name. There's power in that. And I know a lot of people don't, their father's not around for whatever reason, or maybe they just don't have that sort of relationship with their father. But I tell people all the time, me and my father don't always get along and things ain't always been super easy. But I would certainly not be the man I am today without him and his guidance and his wisdom and just being able to, he don't even have to say a lot, but what he does say is typically profound. And he invested and sacrificed a lot for me. And in a lot of ways, I kind of went in his footsteps. He went to Morgan State, I went to Morgan State. He went to BCCC, I went to BCCC. He became a therapist and a social worker. And I went kind of like the education route, but I feel like sometimes I am a therapist and social worker working with different folks. So my father is definitely the top guide and the top inspiration. And I continue to use him and learn from him as time goes on.
I can dig that. That's love. My lady and I just had our kid about 2 years ago, right? And
Congrats.
thank you, I appreciate it. Um, I didn't really have that growing up. You know what I mean? If I did, it was mostly like mentors. I was in like martial arts when I was a kid, and those are like those father figures or little league. You know what I mean? But it's all a learning experience. You know what I mean? Nobody's perfect, but as long as me being a father, I have the best intentions trying to, guide him and be that example. That's all I want in life. You know what I mean? Um, my my child is super smart. You know what I mean? Like he's 2 years old. He can already count to 50. He knows his ABCs front and back. You know what I mean? Like he can read a little bit. He's getting it. And we put him in like the African-based school called Station House, just to like teach him about himself, give him a pride and sense of self. And I think it's important for kids in inner cities or outside of cities to just at least have role models and people that they can look up to that kind of looks like them that can relate to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. That's fortunately, I had a lot of mentors and things coming up. Again, I said my pops is the top guy, but I was a part of an organization called Soul Robbers Nation, which was a local Pan African organization, and we did a lot of community organizing. Um, and even being a part of, um, well, I was loosely a part of the Algebra Project. I was never officially a member, but they were a youth kind of advocacy organization. That was when I was in high school, and being a part of Agbe and Conquerine, which is an African brotherhood here in the city. Like all of those things and all of those situations just put me where I am today. They provided a foundation for me to know that I can do whatever I want to do. As far as my potential, and I'm my biggest obstacle. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not
Right.
even gonna let nothing else tear me down or break me down because they don't have the power to do that. But it took a while to develop that mindset. But I'm so blessed to have folks around me to help pour into that and to nurture that. And so that's how I'm moving.
Mm. What's your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that?
That's a great question. My biggest failure, I think, it would have to be. And I don't even know if this is a failure or not, quote unquote. But
Mm.
I think not starting certain things early. Like every idea that I have, I think sometimes stuff is like divine timing, right? I
Mm.
believe in that. But I also feel like I I had a lot of gifts and talents that maybe earlier years I wasn't like pushing enough. And
Mhm.
I wasn't actualizing my dreams enough. And so I'm always telling young kids like, yo, the time is now. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not just the future, you also are the now. And
Mm.
so if you got a skill, if you got a passion, if you got a yearning to do something, like jump out there, like let's start it. You know what I'm saying? And I always tell them, don't tell me what you want to do unless you're serious, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna support you, and I'm gonna
Mm.
put you either in rooms with people. I'm gonna send a resource your way. I might even send you a couple of dollars. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I'm gonna really support you. So don't play. You know what I mean? Because then I'm gonna come back and say, all right, what's the progress? Give me an update. And so I feel like with writing, I could have gotten started earlier with even books. I had an apparel company as well
Mm.
that might come back, Rebellious Black Soul, but
I
I
wanted to
feel like,
ask you about that, but go ahead.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It might come back, but I feel like I could have started that like undergrad at Morgan, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But I just, again, it's that balance of like, believing in like, all right, it's a certain time and there's a certain reason why you started where you started at. But I always think back, like, man, like I had the connections, I had this, I had that. So again, I don't know if that's quote unquote a failure, but
Mm.
I do feel like now that I know that, I'm like, yeah, you want to still plan and you want to be orchestrated with how you move. You don't just want to be doing a bunch of stuff, but um, making sure that you are putting out, what your dreams are for sure.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of my. I don't. I don't think it's a failure. I think it's like you learn from that. You know what I mean? Like one of my biggest things is procrastination, and I get stuck in my head. And you and I know that everything around us is created in the mind first. So if you doubt yourself, if you are feeling depressed or about your situation or what have you, it all starts in the mind. And it's just as simple as changing your thoughts about it. Put that in action in your mind first and everything else will follow.
Yep, that's facts.
If you could give any advice to your 18-year-old self, what would it be?
I mean, similar to what I just said, like
Mm,
um, just hitting that ignite button. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, like really push, like really set it off. You know what I mean? In a way that it's in your mind because it's gonna work. It's gonna work, and you have people, resources, opportunities around you to help you make it work.
mm,
So just um don't be so hesitant to not get started because you so unsure and you kind of shy, so you don't want to even ask people certain things and just all of that. But like, yo, really, it really it's really gonna work. You know what I'm saying? And it's supposed to work, but it ain't gonna work unless you hit that ignite button. So that's what I would tell my young self.
perfect. Real quick though, I remember we were talking about earlier your apparel, and I still have one of your shirts in the closet right now. Like I throw that on every now and then. Like, um, what made you want to start a apparel company, and how is it going now?
Yeah. So the apparel company really it came in phases. One phase of it, because it used to have a whole different name called Freedom Apparel.
Mm,
And I ended up changing the name because there was another clothing line that was too similar, like too close to the name of mine. I didn't do enough research prior to picking that name. And so I was like, I don't want nobody to be trying to Google me and this other clothing line keep popping up.
mm,
So I was like, we're gonna did that. And then I also wanted something that was simpler to explain to people and was just like quickly internalized by folks. I feel like Freedom Apparel, like people got it, but I had like certain letters was uppercase, certain letters was lowercase because they all had these meanings, and you know I just wanted something simpler, and so I changed the name after probably 1 or 2 years to Rebellious Black Soul, which was much more easily digestible for folks. It was straight to the point,
mm,
and the inspiration came out of me, seeing the kind of trend of apparel. I think it's still trendy now, but I feel like it was less of these sorts of quote unquote socially conscious brands years ago when I was just starting, and I had familiarity with e-commerce already, and so even before people knew me in the city, I had my website, everything laid out real dope. Um, and I also wanted to just like infuse all of these things that I was learning. You know what I'm saying? I was a kid in high school wearing Marcus Garvey shirts and WB
mm,
shirts, and kids being like, yo, what are you know what I'm saying? Like, what you wearing, yo? Because it wasn't popular. Like,
mhm,
all right, here
mhm,
come Malcolm X. You know what I mean? Like, it was that type of vibe. But that's what I was on. But I love those shirts, but I didn't feel like it was edgy and creative enough. And so I wanted to be able to put my own kind of flair. This is one of my old shirts right here.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
a reverse racist is a freedom fighter. Um, and this was actually one of the original joints, right? It say freedom of pearl right at the bottom.
Mhm.
So just being able to be creative, it gave me that outlet. Um, I wanted to start a business, and I think that kind of helped me actualize some of that. One of my friends, Ryan, he was my main graphic designer for a while, And so it even helped us build a partnership and being able to, push our product and just seeing the demand for it. Like people, you mentioned you got a shirt. I got people all the time that's like, yo, when you coming back? You know what I mean? So I think it's timing. The book took over a lot of that energy, a lot of that time, and so. But I do have some ideas around some T-shirts related to the book that I might come out with, and then eventually, like I said, I want to relaunch the clothing brand. But the clothing brand really takes a team. I think at the time that I was doing it, it was me and one other person primarily. And I think if we would have had like 2 or 3 more people, like one person, look, you the social media manager, the next person you working with vendors, so we can be able to vend at different places. Not even vend, but we can be able to put our products in different stores. Another person is finding us vending opportunities. Another person is working on the website. You know what I mean? Instead of like 1 or 2 of us trying to do everything. And so I think having that team approach. And so yeah, like I said, man, the brand will be back for sure, and I'll make sure I let you know when we launch.
Sweet, sweet. All right. This is the end of the podcast, but at the end of every podcast, we like to play a quick game. You down for it? It's called This or That.
Okay, let's get it.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. You can only choose one answer, and the whole world depends on this answer. So answer correctly, right? Okay. Pancakes or waffles?
I'm gonna go with waffles. Even though I just made some pancakes this morning, they was banging. I'm gonna go with waffles.
Soft shell crabs or blue crabs?
Oh, blue crabs. I don't even think I had a soft shell crab. I don't need one.
All right. Kittens or puppies?
More recently I've been on cats more, man. I got a cat now. I love my cat. I'm hoping that he don't hear me say this, but I'm gonna have to go with puppies. Dogs is still number 1, but cats, they rose up a lot in the rankings for
sure. Being an author or creating your own clothing?
What's it?
Being an author, like writing a book, or creating your own clothing? Which one do you prefer?
I think definitely an author. I think it may lend to an even deeper career change in a few years, beyond just writing books, but maybe even being a professor in a college. So I think the author piece is opening up some different doors.
Sweet. I don't know if you like into sports, but the Ravens or the Orioles?
Oh, that's easy. I don't even like baseball like that. So it gotta be the Ravens.
Gotta be the Ravens. I like that. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with me about your journey as an educator, as an author, as a person who makes apparel. How can people get in contact with you and maybe purchase a book or some clothing in the future?
For sure. So I made it real easy. IG, hit me at The Ambitious Black Guy. You can go to my website, albertphillipsjr.com. If you want to grab the book, either for yourself or for a young teen in your community, go to y'allhiring.com, super easy. And I'll autograph your book and ship it right out to you. Let's stay connected.
Perfect, perfect. And I want to thank you again. Hopefully we can, connect and, chop it up again in person when everything calms down. And thank you again, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate your platform, and I look forward to sharing it out with the world.
Absolutely. So once everything is all edited and everything, I'll let you know when we air this episode.
Okay. Yeah, just keep me posted, man.